The observation deck of the Krylak hunting station, known formally as the Sanctuary of Trophies, stretched in a perfect circular arc that afforded an unobstructed view of the stars. Commander Vrax stood with his upper appendages clasped behind his exoskeletal back, all four of his iridescent eyes fixed on the distant glimmer of the Solani system. The polished floor beneath him reflected the countless preserved specimens mounted along the walls. Fearsome creatures from 100 worlds, each one a testament to the hunting prowess of the Krylak. Their chitinous bodies, specialized for the hunt, had conquered apex predators across the galaxy. Yet Vrax felt a familiar restlessness stirring within him. "Commander," Technician Sorrel's voice broke through his contemplation. "The Council has convened." Vrax turned, his mandibles clicking slightly in anticipation. His second-in-command stood respectfully at the entrance to the observation deck, her own carapace bearing the intricate markings of 50 successful hunts. "Very well," Vrax responded, his translator converting his natural clicking speech into the standard galactic tongue. "Let us hear what new challenge they propose." The corridors of the hunting station were adorned with trophies, preserved specimens from countless worlds, each more fearsome than the last. Massive jaws from the water beasts of Aquarius 7, the venomous spines of the Draconis stalkers, the fossilized remains of an extinct predator from the gas clouds of Nebula Centauri. Each trophy told a story of conquest, of the Krylak's dominance over the galaxy's most lethal creatures. Yet, despite all these achievements, Vrax felt unsatisfied. In the era of intergalactic expansion, when resources were being harvested across countless star systems, the thrill of the hunt had somehow diminished. Technology had made it too easy, too predictable. The council chamber hummed with activity as Vrax and Sorrel entered. 7 elder Krylak, their carapaces showing the patina of extreme age, sat in a semicircle on raised platforms. Their compound eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom and the accumulated experience of thousands of hunts. "Commander Vrax," Elder Kraz began, his mandibles clicking deliberately. "Your hunting party has conquered the most formidable predators in 3 galactic sectors. The sanctuary grows crowded with your trophies." Vrax inclined his head in acknowledgement, though the praise felt hollow. "We serve the tradition of the hunt, Elder." "Indeed." Elder Kraz leaned forward slightly. "And it is for this reason that we have summoned you. The Council believes it is time for a different type of challenge." Vrax's antenna twitched with interest. "What manner of prey do you propose? One that does not rely on natural weapons." Elder Kraz activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. A small, blue-green planet materialized, rotating slowly. "This is Solani III, known to its inhabitants as Earth." The display zoomed in, showing bipedal creatures with soft, exposed skin, no visible armor, and dull, flat teeth. They appeared to walk upright on 2 lower limbs, with 2 upper limbs ending in flexible digits. "Homo sapiens," continued Elder Kraz. "Physically, they are among the weakest sentient species we have encountered. No natural armor, no claws, minimal strength compared to even juvenile Krylak." Vrax studied the creatures with a mixture of curiosity and dismissal. "They appear to be prey, not predators. And therein lies the challenge." Elder Kraz clicked, a note of amusement in his voice. "These creatures have become the dominant species on their planet, despite their physical limitations. They have conquered their world not through natural weapons, but through something far more dangerous." "Technology?" Sorrel asked, stepping forward. "Intelligence," corrected Elder Kraz. "Creativity, cooperation. They have developed technology. Yes, but it is their ability to think, to adapt, to work collectively, that makes them formidable." Vrax felt a stirring of excitement for the first time in many cycles. "You propose we hunt these humans?" "We propose you study them," Elder Kraz clarified. Observe their methods. Learn how a physically inferior species has managed to dominate more naturally gifted predators. It will require stealth, patience, and a new approach to the hunt. "This is not hunting," objected another council member, Elder Vriz. "This is scientific observation. We are hunters, not scholars." "The greatest hunters are also the greatest scholars of their prey," countered Elder Kraz. "Commander Vrax's team will approach this as a hunt, but the trophy they bring back will be knowledge, not a physical specimen." Vrax considered the holographic humans once more. Soft, vulnerable, yet somehow dangerous enough to warrant the council's attention. The contradiction intrigued him. "We accept this hunt," Vrax declared, using the formal phrasing of Krylak tradition. "We shall observe these humans and return with the trophy of understanding." Elder Kraz's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Excellent. You will take a small team to Solani III. Your ship has been equipped with advanced cloaking technology to avoid detection. The humans have rudimentary space travel and detection systems, but they are confined largely to their own planet and its immediate orbital zone." "When do we depart?" Vrax asked, already mentally preparing for the expedition. "Immediately," Elder Kraz replied. "The preparations are complete. Your team has been selected. Technician Sorrel for her expertise in technology, Tracker Zhek for his skills in following prey, and yourself to lead." Vrax nodded, a surge of anticipation coursing through his nervous system. A new type of hunt, a new type of prey. Perhaps this would finally satisfy the restlessness that had plagued him. "One final instruction," Elder Kraz added, his tone growing serious. "While these humans may seem primitive compared to our civilization, they are unpredictable. Do not underestimate them. Observe, but do not engage unless absolutely necessary." "Understood, Elder," Vrax responded, though privately he wondered what threat these soft, weaponless creatures could possibly pose to trained Krylak hunters. As they left the council chamber, Sorrel moved to Vrax's side. "What do you make of this assignment, Commander?" Vrax's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "I believe the council is testing us, Sorrel. They wish to see if we can adapt our hunting methods to a different kind of prey." "These humans seem hardly worth the effort," Sorrel observed. "They have no natural defenses. Where is the challenge?" "Perhaps that is the challenge itself," Vrax replied. "To understand how such a species could survive, much less thrive. Come, let us gather Zhek and prepare for departure. The hunt awaits." The hunting vessel, sleek and predatory in its design, detached from the orbital station with barely a tremor. As the stars streaked past in the view screen, Vrax contemplated the peculiar hunt that lay ahead. For the first time in many cycles, he felt the true thrill of the unknown. The journey to the Solani system took 3 standard cycles. During that time, Vrax and his team studied the data the Council had provided about Earth and its inhabitants. The more they learned, the more puzzling the humans became. "They wage war on each other constantly," Tracker Zhek noted, his clawed appendage gesturing toward the display showing human history. "Yet, they also create intricate art and music. They destroy their environment, yet some of them dedicate their lives to preserving it. They are contradictions. All prey species have their peculiarities." Vrax dismissed, though privately he found the humans' inconsistencies fascinating. "What matters is understanding their hunting techniques. According to these records," Sorrel interjected, "humans have hunted most of the large predators on their planet to near extinction. Despite being physically weaker, they use tools, traps, and coordinated group tactics. Primitive methods," Zhek clicked dismissively. "Nothing compared to Krylak hunting technology. Yet, effective for their level of development," Vrax pointed out. "We must not discount their achievements simply because they have not reached our technological level." As they approached Earth, the ship's cloaking systems activated automatically. They slipped past the primitive human satellites and detection systems with ease, entering the atmosphere under the cover of darkness. "I have selected a landing zone in a remote forested region," Sorrel announced. "Human population density is minimal here, allowing us to establish a base camp without detection." The ship descended silently, landing in a small clearing surrounded by tall, organic growths that the humans called trees. The air that filled the ship when they opened the hatch was rich with organic compounds, a symphony of scents that spoke of life in abundance. "Atmospheric composition is within acceptable parameters," Sorrel confirmed, checking her instruments. "We can function without full environmental suits, though I recommend respiratory filters for comfort." Vrax stepped out onto the soil of Earth, his sensory appendages taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. The organic nature of this world was overwhelming compared to the sterile, controlled environments of Krylak space stations. Life teemed everywhere, from the smallest microorganisms in the soil to the flying creatures that darted among the trees. "Deploy the portable shelter and perimeter sensors," Vrax ordered. "Jek, begin tracking patterns of local wildlife. I want to understand the natural predator-prey relationships before we start observing humans." The team worked efficiently, setting up their base camp with practiced precision. By the time the local star, the sun, began to rise, they had established a secure, hidden observation post from which to conduct their unusual hunt. "First readings from the perimeter sensors are interesting," Sorrel reported, as they gathered in the command center of their shelter. "There are several large mammalian predators in this region, creatures the humans call wolves and bears. However, I'm also detecting human activity approximately 12 kilometers north of our position." "A settlement?" Vrax inquired. "No, just a single dwelling," Sorrel clarified. "One human, living alone in this wilderness." Jek's mandibles clicked with interest. "An isolated specimen. Perfect for initial observation." "Agreed," Vrax decided. "We will focus our attention on this solitary human. It may provide insights into their individual capabilities before we study their group behaviors." The team spent the first day settling into their base and calibrating their observation equipment. Jek ventured out to place remote sensors and cameras in a perimeter around the human dwelling, moving with the silent efficiency that had made him the foremost tracker among the Krylak. When he returned, his normally impassive features showed signs of agitation. "Report," Vrax commanded. "The human dwelling is more sophisticated than I anticipated," Jek began. "It appears to be a simple wooden structure, but I detected numerous traps and alarm systems surrounding it. This human has secured its territory with considerable skill." "Traps?" Sorrel asked, surprised. "What kind of traps?" "Primitive by our standards, but ingenious in their simplicity," Jek explained. "Pressure plates connected to alarm systems, tripwires, modified natural features that would funnel any approaching predator into prepared ambush zones." Vrax felt his interest sharpen. "So this human is a hunter, or is accustomed to being hunted," Jek suggested. "I also found evidence of successful hunts, preserved animal parts, tanned hides, and bones fashioned into tools. Most interesting," Vrax mused. "Tomorrow, we will begin proper observation. I want visual confirmation of this human's capabilities." The next morning, the three Krylak moved silently through the forest, their natural stealth enhanced by advanced camouflage technology. They positioned themselves on a ridge overlooking the human dwelling, a simple structure made of cut trees, with a chimney emitting smoke signals of habitation. "Life signs indicate the human is inside," Sorrel whispered, checking her scanner. "Patience," Vrax counseled. "The hunt always rewards the patient." They did not have to wait long. As the sun rose higher, the door to the dwelling opened, and a human emerged. "Female," Sorrel identified, cross-referencing with their database. "Young adult, approximately 20 Earth years." Vrax observed the human with intense focus. She was smaller than he had expected, with a frame that seemed almost fragile compared to a Krylak's robust exoskeleton. Her outer covering, what humans called clothes, was practical, designed for the forest environment. She moved with a confident grace that spoke of comfort in her surroundings. The human female stretched, scanning her surroundings with a alertness that Vrax found surprisingly predator-like. Then, with purposeful movements, she began checking the traps that Jek had described. "She moves like a hunter," Jek observed. "Note how she places her feet, how she constantly surveys her surroundings." "Yet she has no natural weapons," Sorrel added. "No claws, no significant teeth, no poison delivery system." "She carries tools," Vrax pointed out. The human had a blade strapped to her leg, and what appeared to be a primitive projectile weapon slung across her back. Extensions of herself, compensating for her natural limitations. They watched as the female checked several traps, reset one that had been triggered without catching anything, and harvested some kind of small animal from another. "Efficient," Jek approved. "No wasted movement." The human returned to her dwelling with her catch, disappearing inside. The Krylak remained in position, continuing their observation. "I suggest we move closer," Vrax decided after several hours. "We need to understand her patterns more thoroughly." They advanced cautiously toward the dwelling, using the cover of the forest. Vrax was about to give the order to deploy a closer surveillance device when Jek suddenly froze. "Commander," he whispered urgently, "one of my perimeter sensors has been triggered." "Human activity?" Vrax asked. "No. Someone has disabled it, deliberately." Before Vrax could respond, a voice spoke from directly behind them, a voice speaking in perfect, unaccented galactic standard. "You know, for advanced alien hunters, you're pretty predictable." All three Krylaks spun around, weapons instinctively drawn. The human female stood there, arms crossed, looking entirely unimpressed by their presence. "How did you—" Sorrel began, but the human cut her off. "Detect you, track you, find your camp?" She smiled, and there was something predatory in the expression despite her flat teeth. "You're not the first visitors Earth has had. You're just the first to be so obvious about your intentions." Vrax recovered his composure quickly. "You speak our language." "I speak 17 languages, including 3 non-terrestrial ones," the human replied casually. "I'm Lyra, by the way, and you would be the Krylak hunting party that landed in my forest 3 days ago." The 3 Krylak exchanged glances. Their mission had been compromised before it had truly begun. "How do you know who we are?" Vrax demanded. Lyra shrugged, a distinctly human gesture. "Your ship's cloaking technology is advanced, but it still displaces air when it moves. The forest tells me things, if you know how to listen. As for the rest, let's just say Earth has better intelligence networks than your council believes." "You have been observing us," Vrax realized, feeling an unfamiliar sensation that he belatedly recognized as embarrassment. "Of course. You're in my territory." Lyra gestured toward the ridge, where they had been watching her dwelling. "Did you enjoy the show this morning? I put extra effort into appearing primitive and quaint for you." Jek's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Impossible. No human could have detected our presence." "And yet, here I am," Lyra replied. She reached into a pocket and pulled out a small device, tossing it to Sorrel. "Your perimeter sensor. Nice technology, but your power source emits a very distinctive electromagnetic signature. Child's play to track." Sorrel examined the disabled sensor with professional curiosity. "She's right. She's reconfigured the circuitry to create a feedback loop that masked her approach." Vrax studied the human with new appreciation. This was not the primitive prey species they had been led to expect. This was something else entirely. "What do you want?" he asked directly. "I was about to ask you the same question," Lyra countered. "But since you're clearly here to study humans as hunters, why don't we make a deal? Instead of you clumsily stalking me through my forest—" I'll show you what you came to learn." "You're proposing to teach us?" Vrax asked, incredulous. "I'm proposing an exchange," Lyra clarified. "I'll show you human hunting techniques, traps, tools, and strategies. In return, you tell me about the other species you've hunted, their adaptations, their worlds." "Why would you help us?" Sorrel asked suspiciously. "Because I'm curious," Lyra said simply. "And because it's better than having you blunder around my forest, scaring away game and disrupting the ecosystem." She paused, then added with a slight smile. "Besides, it's not often I get to show off for an audience that might actually appreciate the subtleties." Vrax considered the offer. Their mission had been to observe and learn from humans. And here was one volunteering to teach them directly. It was unprecedented. But so was this entire assignment. "Very well," he decided. "We accept your proposal." "Excellent," Lyra said, clapping her hands together once. "Let's start with breakfast. I've got a stew that's been simmering since yesterday, and I'm guessing none of you have tried Earth cuisine yet." Without waiting for a response, she turned and began walking toward her dwelling. After a moment's hesitation, the three Krylak followed. Weapons still at the ready, but no longer aimed directly at the surprising human who had so thoroughly upended their expectations. Lyra's dwelling, which she called a cabin, was more sophisticated inside than its rustic exterior suggested. While constructed primarily of wood, it contained an array of technology that, while not as advanced as Krylak standards, was far from primitive. Solar panels provided power. A computer terminal sat in one corner. Various instruments and tools lined the walls, alongside preserved specimens of local flora and fauna. "Make yourselves comfortable," Lyra offered, gesturing to sturdy wooden chairs around a central table. "Though they might not be ideal for your anatomy." The Krylak tentatively settled themselves on the human furniture, which indeed required some adjustment to accommodate their exoskeletons and additional limbs. "Your dwelling contains technology inconsistent with the isolated existence you appear to maintain," Sorrel observed, her compound eyes taking in the various devices. "I like my privacy, not isolation," Lyra explained as she moved to a heating unit, where a pot bubbled with something that released complex organic aromas. "I'm connected to global information networks. I just prefer not to be physically surrounded by other humans most of the time." She ladled the contents of the pot into bowls and placed them before the Krylak. "I've checked your species' dietary requirements. This stew contains nothing toxic to your systems, though I can't guarantee you'll enjoy the flavor profile." Vrax examined the bowl cautiously. The Krylak were omnivores capable of processing a wide variety of organic compounds, but eating alien food was still a risk. He activated a small analyzer on his wrist guard, scanning the contents. "It's not poisoned," Lyra said, rolling her eyes. "If I wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have revealed myself in the first place." The analyzer showed nothing immediately dangerous, so Vrax cautiously sampled the stew. The taste was unfamiliar, but not unpleasant, rich with proteins and complex carbohydrates. Jek and Sorrel followed his lead. "Acceptable," Vrax acknowledged, which was high praise from a Krylak to alien cuisine. "I'll take that as a compliment," Lyra replied. She sat across from them, studying their features with obvious fascination. "So, the great Krylak hunters have come to study humans. Why now? Your species has known about Earth for at least 70 years. Vrax's mandibles clicked in surprise. "You are aware of previous observations?" "As I said, we have better intelligence than you think," Lyra said, sipping from her own bowl. "Most humans aren't aware of alien visitors, but some of us are. We prefer to keep it that way. For now, Earth has enough problems without adding aliens exist to the public consciousness. Your council, or whatever you call your governing body, chose to send you specifically to study human hunting techniques, correct?" she continued. Which means they've recognized something about us that interests or concerns them. Vrax found himself reluctantly impressed by her deductions. The Council believes that humans' ability to dominate their ecosystem, despite their physical limitations, may provide insights valuable to Krylak hunting traditions. Lyra nodded thoughtfully. In other words, they've realized that raw strength and natural weapons aren't everything. That intelligence, creativity, and cooperation can overcome physical advantages. A theory, Sorrel interjected, not yet proven to our satisfaction. Then, I guess I'll have to prove it, Lyra said with a smile that somehow reminded Vrax of a predator. Finish your breakfast. Today's lesson begins with the most fundamental human hunting tool, the trap. After the meal, Lyra led them into the forest, carrying a simple pack of supplies. The Krylak followed, recording everything with their sensory equipment. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Lyra explained as they walked. We couldn't outfight most predators, but we could outthink them and, crucially, outlast them. We can sweat to regulate our body temperature, allowing us to pursue prey until it collapses from exhaustion. Inefficient, Jek commented. Energy efficient, actually, Lyra corrected. It requires less caloric expenditure than an all-out chase, and it has a very high success rate. But you're right that it's time-consuming, which is why we develop tools and traps to make hunting more efficient. She stopped in a small clearing and knelt on the ground. The simplest trap is a pit. She began digging with a collapsible shovel from her pack. But the key to human hunting isn't the individual tool. It's how we use environmental knowledge to place it. For the next several hours, Lyra demonstrated various trap designs, from simple snares to complex triggered mechanisms. She explained how humans analyzed animal behaviors, migration patterns, and feeding habits to place traps for maximum effectiveness. We don't just place a trap anywhere, she emphasized. We study the prey, understand its needs and patterns, then position our tools accordingly. A perfect trap works with the environment, not against it. Jek, despite his initial skepticism, found himself engaged by the demonstration. These techniques are unexpectedly sophisticated, he admitted. The principles could be applied even with our advanced technology. Exactly, Lyra said, pointing at him with approval. The technology changes, but the underlying principles remain the same. Understanding your prey is more important than the tools you use to catch it. As the day progressed, they moved through the forest, with Lyra pointing out signs of animal passage that even Jek's trained eye had missed. She showed them how humans had learned to read the environment, broken twigs, disturbed soil, specific bird calls that indicated predator movements. The forest is constantly communicating, she explained. Most humans have forgotten how to listen, but those of us who hunt still preserve these skills. By late afternoon, they had covered several kilometers, and Lyra had demonstrated a dozen different tracking and trapping techniques. She led them to a small stream, where she paused to drink. You're an unusual human, Vrax observed. Your knowledge exceeds what we were led to expect from your species. Lyra looked up at him, water dripping from her chin. I'm specialized, just like you are. Most humans don't need to hunt anymore. We've developed agriculture and animal husbandry to provide food more reliably. But some of us maintain the old ways, both for practical reasons and to preserve the knowledge. You speak as if you're a guardian of traditions, Sorrel noted, similar to our own council's role. In a way, Lyra acknowledged. Though I doubt your council would approve of my methods. She stood, brushing dirt from her clothing. Tomorrow, I'll show you something even more interesting. How humans have turned their understanding of predator behavior back on those who hunt them. You suggest humans hunt other hunters? Vrax asked, intrigued. We've had to, Lyra said, her expression growing more serious. Throughout our history, Whenever a predator has threatened us, we've had to develop countermeasures. We've become very, very good at detecting, evading, and neutralizing threats, even those that are physically superior to us." There was something in her tone that gave Rax pause, a subtle warning that he could not quite decipher. This human continued to surprise him, and he was beginning to understand why the Council had sent them on this unusual mission. "Tomorrow, then," he agreed, "we will observe these countermeasures." As they returned to Lyra's cabin for the evening, Vrax found himself contemplating the day's lessons. The human hunting techniques, while technologically simple, demonstrated a sophistication of thinking that he had not anticipated. There was an elegance to their methods, a deep integration with the natural environment that contrasted with the Krylak's more technologically dependent approach. That night, as Lyra slept in her cabin and the Krylak returned to their base camp, Vrax called his team together for assessment. "Your impressions?" he asked. "The human female possesses unexpected knowledge and skill," Zhek admitted. "Her tracking abilities would be respectable even by Krylak standards, despite her physical limitations. Her technological understanding is also greater than anticipated," Sorrel added. "She disabled our perimeter sensors with ease, and seems familiar with concepts that should be beyond Earth's current development level." "Indeed," Vrax agreed. "I believe there is more to this human, and perhaps to humanity as a whole, than we were led to believe. Tomorrow, we must be especially attentive to what she shows us." "Do you trust her, Commander?" Sorrel asked directly. Vrax considered the question carefully. "Trust is irrelevant. We are here to learn, and she is providing valuable data. Her motives are her own concern." But as he settled into his rest cycle, Vrax found himself pondering that very question. Lyra had revealed herself to them deliberately. She was sharing knowledge freely. Yet he sensed she was also evaluating them, testing their reactions. It was almost as if they were as much the subject of study as she was. The thought was unsettling, but also strangely exhilarating. For the first time in many cycles, Vrax felt the true thrill of the unknown, the sense that he was facing something he did not fully understand. It was, he realized, the essence of the hunt that he had been missing. Morning brought a light rain to the forest, creating a misty atmosphere that enhanced the alien quality of Earth's wilderness. The Krylak met Lyra at her cabin as arranged, finding her already prepared for the day's activities. "Today, we'll focus on defensive techniques," she explained, as she shouldered a more substantial pack than the previous day. "How humans protect themselves from predators, including other humans." "You hunt your own kind?" Zhek asked, mandibles clicking in surprise. "Throughout our history, we've often been our own worst predators," Lyra replied grimly, "which has forced us to become very creative in self-defense." She led them deeper into the forest than they had ventured the previous day, following game trails that wound through increasingly dense vegetation. After several hours of hiking, they reached a ridge overlooking a valley. In the distance, barely visible through the trees, stood another structure, larger and more angular than Lyra's cabin. "That's our destination," she said, pointing. "A research outpost I maintain. It's where I test various security and defensive systems." As they descended toward the structure, Lyra began pointing out subtle modifications to the natural environment. Channels dug to direct water flow, strategic clearing of underbrush, carefully positioned rock formations. "The first principle of human defense is to control the approach," she explained. "We modify the terrain to channel potential threats along predictable paths, where we can monitor and, if necessary, neutralize them. Similar to how predators create hunting grounds," Vrax observed. "Exactly," Lyra nodded. "We learned from watching predators, then improved on their techniques. The best defense incorporates natural elements so seamlessly that the threat never realizes it's being manipulated." As they neared the outpost, Lyra stopped them at the edge of a clearing. This is where things get interesting. The clearing before us contains 17 different defensive mechanisms. I want you to identify as many as you can before we proceed. The three Krylak studied the seemingly innocent clearing with new attention. Zhek was the first to spot an anomaly. The ground has been disturbed there and there, he indicated. Pitfall traps? Good eye, Lyra confirmed. Though not designed to capture, these are filled with a dense, expanding foam that immobilizes without causing harm. Sorrel pointed to nearly invisible filaments strung between trees. Some kind of alarm system? Motion and pressure sensors, Lyra explained. They trigger different responses depending on the size and speed of whatever breaks the beam. Vrax studied the patterns more comprehensively. The entire clearing is a sophisticated filtration system. It allows small wildlife to pass unhindered, but detects and responds to larger potential threats. Very good, Lyra said, sounding genuinely impressed. Most humans wouldn't spot half of what you've identified. Now, watch closely. She picked up a fallen branch and tossed it into the clearing. Immediately, several systems activated. A section of ground depressed slightly. Sensors flashed, and a fine mist deployed briefly from concealed nozzles. Had that been an actual intruder, they would now be tagged with a biomarker that allows tracking for up to 72 hours. Lyra explained. The system distinguished the branch from a living creature, so it didn't deploy the immobilizing countermeasures. Impressive discrimination capabilities, Sorrel acknowledged. Beyond what I would have expected from Earth-level technology. The research outpost contains more advanced systems, Lyra continued, leading them carefully through the clearing by a path that avoided triggering the defenses. But the principles remain consistent with traditional human approaches. Use the environment, understand behavior patterns, employ minimum necessary force. The outpost itself was a stark contrast to Lyra's rustic cabin. Constructed of composite materials with a distinctly technological appearance, it resembled a small research facility more than a dwelling. As they approached, Vrax noted multiple sensor arrays, communication dishes, and what appeared to be weapons emplacements disguised as architectural elements. This facility does not match the technological level indicated in our briefing materials, he stated. Lyra smiled slightly. Your briefing materials are outdated, or perhaps deliberately incomplete. She placed her hand on a scanner by the entrance, and the door slid open silently. Welcome to my actual workspace. The cabin is just where I sleep and eat when I'm in the field. The interior of the outpost was a revelation. Advanced computer systems lined the walls. Holographic displays showed real-time data from what appeared to be global monitoring networks. Specimen containers held biological samples from various Earth species, alongside what Vrax recognized as sophisticated analysis equipment. You are not a simple forest-dwelling human, Sorrel stated, her tone accusing. I never claimed to be, Lyra replied calmly. I said I would show you how humans hunt and defend themselves. This is part of that demonstration. She gestured to a central holographic display that activated at her approach. It showed a three-dimensional map of Earth, with countless points of light indicating something. This is the culmination of human defensive strategy, Lyra explained. A global monitoring network that tracks potential threats to our species and ecosystem. Each light represents a sensor node, some traditional technology, others biological or hybrid systems. This cannot be the work of a single human, Vrax said, mandibles clicking in agitation. It's not, Lyra acknowledged. I'm part of an international research collective dedicated to planetary security. Some of us focus on environmental threats, others on cosmic ones, others on biological risks. My specialty is identifying and countering predatory behavior from whatever source. The implication was clear, and Vrax felt an unfamiliar sensation that he belatedly identified as discomfort. You knew we were coming. We detected your ship entering the solar system 5 days ago, Lyra confirmed. We've been tracking Krylak hunting parties for decades, though this is the first time one has landed on Earth itself. If you have this level of technology, why reveal yourself to us? Jack demanded. Why not simply observe us without detection? Lyra's expression grew more serious. Because it's time for a different approach. The Krylak have hunted across 17 star systems that we know of. You've collected specimens from dozens of worlds. Your sanctuary of trophies is legendary even among spacefaring species. She turned to face Vrax directly. But you've never encountered a species quite like humans before, have you? Physically unimpressive, but with a knack for turning the tables on predators. We wanted you to understand exactly what you're dealing with. Should your council ever decide that humans would make interesting trophies? The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably. What had seemed an educational exchange now revealed itself as something far more strategic. You have been evaluating us, Vrax realized. This entire exercise has been to demonstrate your defensive capabilities. Partially, Lyra admitted, but also to establish communication. To show you that there are approaches to interspecies relations beyond predator and prey. She gestured to a different display, which showed images of various alien species. Some Vrax recognized, others unfamiliar. Earth has been making contact with other civilizations discreetly for generations. Some of those contacts have been productive exchanges of knowledge and culture. Others, her expression hardened. Others have required more assertive responses. You imply you have repelled hostile species, Sorrel said incredulously. Let's just say that several would-be invaders discovered that what seems like easy prey can sometimes be the most dangerous hunt of all. Lyra replied. We prefer peaceful exchange, but we're prepared for alternatives. Vrax processed this revelation with growing appreciation for the complexity of the situation. The Council had sent them to study human hunting techniques, but had perhaps underestimated what they might find. You wish us to report this to the Krylak Council, he stated, understanding dawning. I wish you to understand what humans truly are, Lyra corrected. Not primitive prey, not merely clever tool users, but a species that has turned predatory pressure into evolutionary advantage. We've survived and thrived precisely because we've had to overcome physically superior threats throughout our history. She moved to a workstation and activated another display. This one showing comparative physiological data between various species, including Krylak and humans. Your physical advantages are considerable, she acknowledged, but they've led to over-reliance on strength rather than strategy. Humans have had to develop different approaches, anticipating threats, coordinating responses, designing solutions that work with minimal resources. You suggest the Krylak have become complacent? Vrax asked, a note of challenge in his voice. I suggest that any species that defines itself primarily as a predator eventually encounters prey that has evolved specifically to counter predation. Lyra replied diplomatically. It's not about complacency. It's about the inevitable evolutionary arms race. She gestured around the facility. All of this technology, all of these monitoring systems and defensive countermeasures, they weren't developed primarily for aliens. They evolved from our need to protect ourselves from terrestrial threats, including other humans. Our history of conflict forced us to become extraordinarily good at detecting and neutralizing dangers. Vrax found himself reassessing everything he had observed about humans, about Earth, and about this unusual mission. The Council had sent them to learn from human hunting techniques, but they had discovered something far more significant. A species that had transformed the very concept of predator and prey into something more nuanced, more adaptive. The Krylak Council respects worthy adversaries, he said finally. Your demonstration has been educational. I hope it's been more than that, Lyra responded. I hope it's the beginning of a different kind of relationship, not predator and prey, but mutual respect between species with different evolutionary paths, but complementary knowledge. She deactivated the displays and turned to face the three Krylak directly. Tomorrow, I propose a final demonstration, not of how humans hunt or defend, but of how we can work together with other species for mutual benefit. If you're willing to set aside the traditional predator mindset, that is. Vrax considered the offer. This mission had already exceeded its original parameters in ways the Council could not have anticipated. Yet the potential knowledge to be gained was substantial, perhaps even transformative for Krylak hunting traditions. We will observe your final demonstration, he decided, and then we must report our findings to the Council. Fair enough, Lyra agreed. Meet me at the cabin at dawn, and come with an open mind. Tomorrow might challenge your most fundamental assumptions about what it means to be a hunter. As the Krylak returned to their base camp that evening, a tense discussion ensued. This human has manipulated us from the beginning, Sorrel argued. We should abort the mission and return to the station immediately. And report what? Vrax countered. That humans are more technologically advanced than our intelligence suggested? That they have been aware of interspecies contact for generations? The Council would demand more complete information. The human clearly has an agenda, Zek added. This final demonstration is likely another attempt to influence our perception. Undoubtedly, Vrax agreed. Yet, consider what we have already learned. Human hunting and defensive techniques are unlike anything in our records. Their approach to predator-prey relationships challenges fundamental Krylak assumptions. Is this not precisely the kind of knowledge the Council sent us to acquire? After lengthy debate, they reached consensus. They would observe Lyra's final demonstration, but with heightened awareness of her potential motives, they would document everything meticulously for the Council's evaluation. None of them slept well that night. The revelations of the day had disturbed their understanding of their mission, of Earth, and perhaps even of the Krylak's place in the galactic order. Dawn brought clear skies after the previous day's rain. When the Krylak arrived at Lyra's cabin, they found her waiting outside, dressed differently than before. Rather than the practical forest attire, she wore what appeared to be a uniform of some kind, tailored dark clothing with insignia they did not recognize. Today we travel farther, she announced without preamble. I've arranged transportation. As if on cue, a near-silent aircraft descended into the clearing beside the cabin. Its design was sleek, and unlike any human aircraft included in their briefing materials. Your species has achieved gravity manipulation, Sorrel observed, professional interest momentarily overriding her suspicion. Among other things, Lyra confirmed. This shuttle will take us to the main research facility. What you saw yesterday was just an outpost. The interior of the craft was spacious and clearly designed for various species. The seating could be reconfigured to accommodate different physiologies. As they settled in, the craft rose smoothly and accelerated to what Vrax estimated was well beyond the sound barrier, though they felt no turbulence or heard any sonic disturbance. Inertial dampening as well, he noted. Your technology is comparable to mid-tier galactic standard. In some areas, yes, Lyra acknowledged. In others, we've taken different development paths. You'll see. The journey took less than an hour. Through the viewports, Vrax observed they were traveling over what appeared to be a large ocean, far from continental landmasses. Eventually, a structure came into view, a massive installation rising from the water. Its architecture a blend of functional and elegant design. Oceanic Platform 7, Lyra identified. One of our primary research and coordination centers. The craft descended toward a landing pad on the upper level of the platform. As they disembarked, Vrax noted numerous other aircraft of various designs, as well as what appeared to be aquatic vessels, docked around the base of the structure. This way, Lyra directed, leading them toward a central building. The Oversight Committee is expecting us. Committee, Jet questioned. Did you think I was acting alone? Lyra asked with a slight smile. My invitation to you was approved at the highest levels. What happens next depends largely on your response to what you're about to see. The interior of the facility was a hub of activity. Humans in various uniforms moved purposefully through corridors and work areas. Advanced technology was evident everywhere: holographic displays, automated systems, and equipment that even Vrax could not readily identify. Most surprising, however, was the presence of non-humans. As they progressed deeper into the facility, the Krylak observed several alien species working alongside humans, some humanoid in basic form, others wildly different in physiology. "You maintain an interspecies research collective," Vrax stated, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. "Earth is part of a cooperative network," Lyra confirmed. "Not a formal alliance or federation, more a coalition of interested parties who share certain philosophical principles." She led them to a large, circular chamber, where several beings, human and non-human, sat around a conference table. They looked up as the group entered, their expressions ranging from curiosity to caution. "Members of the Oversight Committee," Lyra announced. "I present Commander Vrax, Technician Sorrel, and Tracker Zhek of the Krylak Hunting Society." A human male rose from his seat, older than Lyra, with silver-streaked hair and an air of authority. "I am Dr. Harrison Chen, Committee Chairperson. Welcome to Earth's primary xenological research facility." Another figure, distinctly non-human, with iridescent skin and elongated limbs, spoke next. "I am Ambassador Nezuk of the Solarian Conclave. We have history with the Krylak." Vrax recognized the species. The Krylak had hunted on their worlds several generations ago. "The Solarians are spacefaring now," he observed. "With assistance," the ambassador acknowledged, gesturing to the humans around the table. "After your kind finished sampling our apex predators, we sought allies who understood the importance of ecological balance." Dr. Chen cleared his throat. "Please, be seated. We have much to discuss." The Krylak cautiously took places at the table. Vrax noted that despite the superficial cordiality, security measures were evident throughout the chamber, discreet but present. "Lyra has reported on your interactions over the past days," Dr. Chen began. "Your council sent you to study human hunting techniques, but you've discovered something more complex, haven't you?" "Indeed," Vrax acknowledged. "Your species has capabilities beyond what our intelligence suggested." "Deliberately so," another human committee member interjected. "We've maintained a policy of technological discretion for generations. It's served us well. The question now," Dr. Chen continued, "is how the Krylak will respond to this new understanding of Earth and humanity." Vrax considered his words carefully. "Our mission was to observe and learn. We have done so, though what we have learned differs significantly from our expectations. It is not our place to determine Krylak policy toward Earth. That is the Council's prerogative. But you will make recommendations," Lyra pointed out. "Your report will shape the Council's perception." "Yes," Vrax admitted. "And I must report honestly what we have observed." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "Then perhaps you should observe one final thing before completing your assessment." He activated a control on the table, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. The image showed a star system that Vrax recognized immediately: the Krylak home system. But something was wrong. The orbital patterns were disturbed. The third planet, the Krylak homeworld, showed signs of extreme climate disruption. "This is a projection," Dr. Chen explained, "based on current trajectories of resource exploitation in your system. The Krylak hunting tradition has expanded beyond sustainable limits. You are harvesting apex predators faster than ecosystems can adapt. The results, within 3 generations, will be catastrophic." "This is speculation," Sorrel objected. "Our scientists monitor ecosystem health rigorously." "Your scientists monitor individual species," corrected another committee member. a being with multiple sensory appendages that Vrax did not recognize. They fail to account for cascade effects across trophic levels. We have seen this pattern on 17 worlds where Krylak hunting has occurred, as the hologram shifted to show other planets, some Vrax recognized as Krylak hunting grounds. The data visualizations indicated ecological systems in various states of collapse or precarious recovery. The Mendarian salt marshes. Zhek identified one image. They were vibrant hunting grounds when I was there 15 cycles ago. And now they are dead zones. The ambassador Enzek stated. After the Krylak removed the top predators, the herbivore populations exploded, destroying the vegetation that maintained the delicate salinity balance. The entire ecosystem collapsed within a decade. Vrax felt an unfamiliar sensation, a deep disquiet that touched something fundamental in his understanding of the Krylak purpose. You suggest our hunting traditions are destructive beyond acceptable parameters. I suggest they are unsustainable in their current form, Dr. Chen replied carefully. Which brings us to the purpose of this meeting. He deactivated the disturbing projections and leaned forward. We propose a new relationship between humans and Krylak, not as potential predator and prey, but as partners in developing more sustainable approaches to interspecies exchange. What specifically do you propose? Vrax asked, mandibles clicking softly in contemplation. Lyra stepped forward. A knowledge exchange program. Humans have spent millennia learning to hunt sustainably, developing principles of conservation, ecosystem management, and species protection that allow predator-prey relationships to continue indefinitely. In return, Dr. Chen added, we would benefit from Krylak expertise in xenobiology, particularly regarding species adaptation across varied environments. Your people's understanding of predator evolution is unparalleled. Vrax glanced at his team members. Sorrel appeared skeptical, but Zhek seemed intrigued by the proposition. Such cooperation would represent a significant departure from Krylak tradition, Vrax noted. Traditions evolve or they die. Ambassador Enzek stated bluntly. My people learned this lesson painfully after your hunts disrupted our world. We adapted, formed new relationships, developed new approaches. We survived and eventually thrived again. Consider the implications for your hunting traditions, Lyra suggested. Sustainable practices would ensure hunting grounds remain viable for generations to come. The challenge of the hunt would increase as you work within ecological constraints, rather than simply overwhelming prey with superior technology. Vrax found himself considering the proposal with surprising openness. The evidence of ecological damage was compelling. The prospect of enhancing, rather than diminishing the challenge of the hunt, appealed to his hunter's instincts. And there was something else, a recognition that the greatest hunters were those who ensured their prey would always exist to be hunted. I cannot commit the Krylak to such a partnership, he said finally. But I can present your proposal to the Council, alongside our observations. The decision will be theirs. That is all we ask, Dr. Chen nodded. An honest accounting of what you have learned here. And a recommendation, Lyra pressed. Vrax met her gaze directly. My recommendation will reflect what I believe best serves the long-term interests of the Krylak hunting traditions. Nothing more. Nothing less. Fair enough, she acknowledged. Then there's just one more thing to show you before you return to your ship. The final demonstration took place in a massive biodome, adjacent to the main facility. As the Krylak entered, they found themselves in a meticulously recreated Earth ecosystem, a forest similar to where they had first encountered Lyra, but with subtle differences. This is a restoration project, Lyra explained, as they walked along a path through the dense vegetation. 50 years ago, this ecosystem was recreated from fragmentary evidence after the original was destroyed by human activity. You preserve environments you previously damaged? Zhek asked. We learn from our mistakes, Lyra replied. Humans nearly destroyed many of Earth's ecosystems before we understood the consequences. Our history is filled with species we hunted to extinction, habitats we ruined through ignorance or greed. She led them to a clearing where a holographic display showed time-lapse imagery of the biodome's development, from barren ground to the rich ecosystem now surrounding them. This is what happens when a predator species learns restraint, she continued, when it applies intelligence not just to the hunt, but to the preservation of what makes the hunt possible. We call it stewardship, the principle that with power comes responsibility to maintain, not merely to consume. The display shifted to show various Earth species that had recovered from near extinction: whales, tigers, California condors, and others unfamiliar to the Krylak. These creatures once faced oblivion because of human actions, Dr. Chen explained, having joined them in the biodome. Now they thrive again because we changed our approach, from seeing them merely as trophies or resources to recognizing their value within the greater web of life. Vrax observed the reverence with which the humans spoke of these recovered species. It was not unlike the respect Krylak hunters accorded worthy prey. Yet, it contained an additional element, a recognition of interconnection that transcended the simple predator-prey dynamic. The Krylak have always prided ourselves on being apex predators, he said thoughtfully. Perhaps we have defined that role too narrowly. The true apex predator, Lyra suggested, is not merely the one with the sharpest claws or the most advanced weapons. It's the one with the wisdom to ensure the hunt can continue forever. As they completed their tour of the facility and prepared to return to their ship, Vrax found himself experiencing a profound shift in perspective. The mission had begun as a simple study of human hunting techniques. It was ending as something far more consequential, a potential turning point in Krylak understanding of their place in the galactic ecosystem. Back aboard their vessel, preparing for departure, Vrax called his team together for a final assessment. "Your conclusions?" he asked. "The humans are more advanced and more dangerous than our intelligence indicated," Sorrel stated. "Their technology approaches galactic standard in many areas, and their monitoring capabilities are extensive. They represent a potential threat that the Council should be made aware of. They have also demonstrated ecological principles that could benefit Krylak hunting grounds," Jet countered. "Their approach to sustainable predation contains elements worth considering. The evidence of damage to ecosystems we have hunted in is concerning." Vrax nodded, having expected this division of perspective. "And your recommendations?" "Caution," Sorrel said immediately. "Limited engagement until we better understand their true capabilities and intentions." "The selective cooperation," Jek suggested. "Begin with knowledge exchange regarding ecosystem management. Maintain hunting traditions, but adapt them to incorporate sustainability principles." Vrax considered both viewpoints as the ship's engines hummed to life. The Earth grew smaller in their view screen, a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. Somewhere on that world, Lyra and her colleagues awaited the Krylak response to what they had learned. "I will report to the Council that humans are not the primitive prey species we believe them to be," Vrax decided. "They are predators who have learned to hunt with wisdom rather than merely with strength, who understand that the greatest trophy is not a single conquered prey, but a hunting ground that remains vital for generations." He turned to face his team directly. "I will recommend that the Krylak reconsider our approach to hunting, not abandoning our traditions, but evolving them to incorporate what we have learned here. The greatest hunters adapt to changing conditions. It is time for the Krylak to adapt." The journey back to the Krylak hunting station passed in contemplative silence. As they approached the familiar silhouette of the Sanctuary of Trophies, Vrax found himself viewing it differently, seeing not just the glory of conquest, but the potential consequences of hunting without foresight. The Council convened immediately upon their return, eager to hear the results of their unusual mission. The 7 elders sat in their traditional semicircle, mandibles clicking with anticipation as Vrax and his team presented their findings. "You report that these humans, These physically inferior beings have developed monitoring capabilities that detected our arrival, Elder Cross asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Yes, Elder, Vrax confirmed. They have transformed their defensive needs into technological advantages. They observed us as much as we observed them. And you believe their claims about ecological damage to our hunting grounds? Elder Vriz demanded. We have verified their data against our own records, Sorrel answered, surprising Vrax with her support. The projections are consistent with observed patterns on multiple worlds where we have hunted extensively. For hours, the Council questioned them about every aspect of their encounter with Lyra and the human research facility. They debated the implications, the potential threats, and the opportunities presented by this new understanding of Earth and its inhabitants. Finally, Elder Cross raised his primary appendages for silence. Commander Vrax, you have provided much to consider. What is your formal recommendation to the Council? Vrax stepped forward, feeling the weight of tradition and the promise of evolution in equal measure. I recommend that the Krylak Hunting Society establish a limited knowledge exchange program with the humans of Earth, that we incorporate their principles of sustainable predation into our hunting practices, that we recognize them not as potential prey, but as fellow predators who have developed different but equally valid approaches to the hunt. He paused, then added, and I recommend that we begin to view our role as apex predators more broadly, not merely as takers of trophies, but as stewards of the ecosystems we hunt within. The greatest hunter ensures that prey will always exist to be hunted. The greatest predator preserves the balance that allows the hunt to continue eternally. Silence fell over the council chamber as the elders considered his words. Finally, Elder Cross spoke. You went to Earth to study human hunting techniques, he said slowly. It seems you have returned with something far more valuable, a new perspective on what it means to be Krylak. The Council will deliberate on your recommendations. 3 cycles later, the decision came. The Krylak would begin a limited exchange program with Earth's Xenological Research Collective. They would share biological data from their hunting expeditions in exchange for human expertise in ecosystem management. Most significantly, they would establish new protocols for hunting that incorporated sustainability principles. As Vrax prepared for his return to Earth as the first official Krylak representative to the exchange program, he found himself in the observation deck where the mission had begun. The stars stretched before him, including the distant sun of the Solani system. He reflected on how profoundly his understanding had changed in such a short time. A human might have called it ironic that he had gone to study a supposedly inferior species and instead had learned a more sophisticated definition of what it meant to be a hunter. The Krylak had always prided themselves on being apex predators. Now, they were beginning to understand that the true apex was not the one who merely killed most efficiently, but the one who hunted with wisdom enough to ensure the hunt would never end. Lyra had been right. The physically weakest species had developed the most sustainable approach to predation. By laying down their weapons and listening to a human girl, the Krylak had begun their evolution into something greater than mere hunters. They were becoming stewards of the galactic wilderness, guardians of the eternal hunt. In the end, that was the greatest trophy of all.